I am starting to find some of the limitations with these latest AI models, particularly here with Gemini, where I'm doing most of my tests these days. Even after many attempts, there was a couple of things that it couldn't do. One fairly simple, the other one significantly more complex, but it still would not solve it, and I gave it into itself many times, gave it all the errors, tried to look at it a bit manually to suggest suggestions, but it would not work. I'll get more into that into a moment, but for now let's just have a look at this working. First, you'll notice I put all these different controls to make it more gamified. It's not just set the power, you've got to get it and the right timing, but I've also created an angle to launch at where you can change the angle of attack and the weight, as in lower ones will spin for more and heavier ones will hit harder but spin for less. So you need to decide which way you want to go to kind of give it more difference between each of the blades, and the AI one will choose randomly, so you never have any no. And then if we push launch here, boom, it attacks the things and then you fly out. If you go too hard, you will fly out, so normally it's better to do slightly less power. Again, we flew out again, but you can see how that working there, so let's bring it down and maybe go with small power. So it still needs some working on. We lost that one, but as you can see, the blades spin around in this bowl here. I've given it transparent windows, so you can see it happening kind of just like a standard BayBlade Arena, one of the older ones. The newer ones actually have those other tracks, but still pretty cool what you can do with it. And we can just refresh instead of waiting for that to end. Let's have a go again. And so now we win. I made it so the collisions were more violent, because at the start it was just always spinning and they hit each other, but then they just continue spinning. It wasn't quite so fun. So now it may be too violent, but you know, it's still kind of fun. If we bring the weight right down, put it straight in the center and go for a small power, we should lose maybe. Oh no, we got hit out. So because we were too light and the other guy was heavier than us, so he span us out. So that's kind of the game. You get how BayBlade works. It's pretty cool that the computer can calculate all this stuff, all the different weight between each blade, how it is spinning around and around continuously, the energy to slow it down over time, the friction against the sides and against the plate, the collision detection, which changes dynamically depending on how much power each one has, how fast it is spinning, and its weight. So there is a fair amount of complex maths that has to go in here. So this one did take a load of prompting. It was no longer just a one-shotted thing you could do. It took me a couple of hours back and forward with the thing over a couple of days, and I did start on just a blank screen, but now we have a working game. I still don't think it's perfect. Now it's maybe the collisions are too violent, as in, you know, we are almost winning immediately. So spin, and then we collide and we knock the other blade out. It is still amazing the code can create this with just using React and 3JS. As we have a look here, it's import our React, and we look in the app here and we import 3. And then we have the arena, that's a fairly simple thing. We have the blades themselves and a fair amount of code here. And then we have the scene, UI, that's just the controls, and the app. So in the blades here is doing a fair amount of the calculation of the velocities and the spin on the blades as they go around, which is happening in here. And some more of it going here. That's the visuals of the blade there. And the scene, what is happening here, we can see it's given the power to the different blades, it's given the weights that then is controlled to the which the user then controls and gives it to the blade to kind of create it more dynamic instead of every time it being the same blade spinning. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's still pretty cool. But I'm going to tell you the two problems that I have with it. The first one is the blades do not actually spin on the surface. As you can see, they are hovering, and however many times I got to try to do this, and even just trying to manually lower them, they would not work correctly, because then they were colliding with the actual surface. So they are hovering above the surface instead of spinning around on the arena bowl-like shape. And the second thing is they do not create shadows. The amount of times I try to make them have shadows casting into the arena for the blades, no matter what I could try and however many times I tried to prompt it, I could never get the shadows to work. So I don't know why. You think shadows would be a fairly simple thing, and it's actually put them in the code itself. You can see here they trying to cast shadows, but it was not rendering for me. I don't know why. Maybe I could have figured it out eventually, but it wasn't error or bug worth chasing down for spending so much time on. I think the concept is kind of cool to see what we can just do based upon the physics and what the AI can create. I think it would be kind of interesting to maybe try something similar, maybe not Beyblades, but another 3D type thing with the AI, but doing it in Unity, because a game engine would have the object handling and the object interactions, making it, they should be much easier to implement. So they should probably, hopefully, be able to like spin on the surface and like casting shadows and all of that. I think are basically almost embedded things you can pull in. I'm not sure. I've never really played around in Unity too much. Only done a couple of small tests, so I'm not 100% sure. But it would still be interesting to see, can the AI code in Unity, especially since it wouldn't have such direct control of it, unlike here in the web app where it can continuously cycle over the same thing and render it all in one. So maybe interesting to test that in the near future.